March 21st started like any other day for the Johnson family, but by evening, their lives would be forever changed by the smallest, most unlikely visitor. Dark storm clouds had been gathering all afternoon. The wind picked up violently. Nature was about to deliver a twist of fate that nobody saw coming. High in the old oak tree, a magpie family had built their nest. But this storm would test every branch, every twig, every carefully woven strand. Inside that nest, 3 tiny chicks huddled together. Their world was about to be turned upside down. Literally, the wind roared, branches cracked, and then it happened. The smallest chick tumbled through the air, falling towards certain doom. 20 feet below, the impact should have been fatal. But sometimes, even in nature's cruelest moments, miracles find a way. The next morning, 10-year-old Emma Johnson stepped into the backyard. What she discovered would haunt her dreams and change everything. There, barely moving beneath the oak tree, was the tiniest bird she'd ever seen. Its eyes were closed. Its breathing was shallow. Emma's scream brought the entire family running. Her mother, Sarah, gasped. Her father, Mike, stood frozen. This little life hung by a thread. They had minutes, maybe less, to act. The chick's body temperature was dropped. The clock was ticking. This tiny magpie had hours, not days, to live. Sarah knew the brutal truth. Without immediate intervention, this little fighter wouldn't see another sunrise. The first 48 hours would determine everything. Every minute was a battle between life and death. Hour after hour, Sarah became this bird's lifeline. 2 a.m., 4 a.m., 6 a.m. The feeding schedule never stopped. Every 2 hours meant every 2 hours. No exceptions, no breaks, no sleep. But finding a veterinarian willing to treat a wild magpie? That was another battle entirely. Call after call ended the same way. We don't treat wild birds. Try wildlife rehabilitation. Sorry, we can't help. Sarah was running out of options. And time was running out for this little life. She mixed specialized formula by hand, calculating every drop. Too much could kill. Too little meant starvation. The feeding process itself was treacherous. One wrong move could cause aspiration. Game over. Temperature control became obsession. Too hot, too cold. Either could be fatal for such a fragile creature. By hour 36, something miraculous happened. Those tiny eyes opened wider. A faint chirp escaped. Sarah had won the first battle. But what came next would surprise everyone, including her. As Penguin's strength returned, something extraordinary began to unfold. Most rescued birds maintained their distance from humans. Penguin was different. She began following Sarah from room to room, like a loyal shadow. When Sarah sat down, Penguin would position herself nearby, watching every movement. The attachment wasn't limited to just Sarah. The entire family became her focus. She'd panic when left alone, calling out desperately until someone returned. During family meals, she insisted on being present, positioning herself at the table's edge. Wild magpies typically show fear responses to human proximity. Penguins sought it out. She developed what could only be described as separation anxiety. Most remarkably, she began responding to her name like a domesticated pet. The family realized they weren't just caring for a wild bird anymore. Penguin had chosen them as her flock. But what happened next would test this unprecedented bond in ways no one expected. As Penguin's strength returned, Sarah knew the inevitable moment was approaching. Flight training. The first step toward what everyone assumed would be goodbye. In the safety of their backyard, Penguin began testing wings that had never known freedom. The first attempts were clumsy, awkward hops that barely left the ground. But within days, something miraculous happened. True flight. Penguin could now glide effortlessly from tree to fence to rooftop. The entire property became his aerial playground. Every corner mapped from above. Sarah watched with mixed emotions as Penguin's world expanded beyond their yard. The wild beckoned. Dense forest stretched just beyond the property line. Everyone expected the inevitable. A flight into those trees, never to return. But day after day, something extraordinary happened instead. Penguin would soar high, circle the wilderness, then return home. Every single flight ended the same way. Back to Sarah. The bird who could now go anywhere was choosing to stay. Building on the bond we witnessed forming, something extraordinary began happening every single morning at exactly 6:45. The magpie would perch outside the parents' bedroom window, tapping rhythmically on the glass. This wasn't random behavior. This was a calculated morning greeting ritual that left the family speechless. The children's windows received the same treatment. Individual greetings for each family member. But the neighbors were about to witness something that challenged everything they thought they knew about wild birds. Every school morning, the magpie would follow the children to the bus stop. Flying from tree to tree, other children tried to approach. The magpie would position itself protectively between them and its chosen family. This wasn't just attachment. This was genuine protective instinct toward humans who weren't even its biological species. When the school bus arrived, neighbors watched in astonishment as the bird waited until the children boarded safely. Only then would it fly back to the house. As if completing a sacred duty. The afternoon routine was equally remarkable. The magpie somehow knew exactly when the bus would return. It would escort the children home with the same protective vigilance it had shown that morning. Neighbors began timing their own routines around this daily spectacle. Word was spreading throughout the community. What they were witnessing defied conventional understanding of wild animal behavior. But wildlife experts were about to weigh in. Word of Penguin's extraordinary bond had reached the scientific community. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, an avian behavior specialist, arrived to assess the situation firsthand. What she witnessed challenged everything she knew about magpie psychology. Penguin's behavior toward Claire wasn't random. It was deliberate, calculated, chosen. The debate that followed would divide the wildlife rehabilitation community. Some argued this was classic imprinting, a confused bird mistaking humans for its own species. But Dr. Mitchell saw something different, something unprecedented. Penguin interacted normally with other magpies. He knew exactly what he was. Yet he consistently chose the human family over his wild companions. The recommendation was clear. They needed to encourage wild behaviors immediately, reduce human contact, stop the feeding routine, force independence. Claire's heart sank, but she knew they had to try. What happened next would test the true strength of their impossible bond. The time had come. The family knew they had to try the impossible, teaching Penguin to choose the wild over their home. Their first strategy seemed foolproof. Move Penguin's food bowl to the very edge of their property. Day by day, they moved it further into the woods. Surely distance would break the bond. Penguin followed every single move. The clever bird had turned their plan into a treasure hunt. Next, they tried the ultimate test. They stopped feeding Penguin entirely for 3 days. Wild magpies would be forced to forage. Penguin would learn independence through necessity. On day 3, Penguin appeared at their kitchen window. But something was different. The bird had brought gifts. Shiny objects, colorful flowers, even a small, smooth stone. Penguin wasn't just surviving in the wild. The bird was thriving and sharing the bounty. Their final attempt was the most drastic. A complete family vacation for 1 full week. No humans, no interaction, no reason for Penguin to stay. Nature would surely reclaim the bird. When they returned, Penguin was waiting on the roof. Not just waiting, guarding their home. The bird had spent 7 days protecting their property from other birds and small animals. Every release attempt had failed spectacularly. Penguin had chosen family over freedom, again and again. What happened next would catapult this extraordinary magpie into worldwide fame. The family's first social media post was meant for close friends. Just a simple video of their feathered companion. Within hours, the views started climbing. Dozens became hundreds. Hundreds became thousands. The magpie's daily routines that neighbors had witnessed were now captivating audiences across the globe. Comments poured in from every corner of the world. People couldn't believe what they were seeing. Local news stations caught wind of the viral sensation living right in their backyard. The first news crew arrived on a crisp Tuesday morning, expecting a quick human interest story. But when the magpie performed its incredible behaviors live on camera, even the seasoned journalists were stunned. The news segment aired that evening. By morning, the family's quiet street had transformed. Visitors began arriving from neighboring towns, then neighboring states. Wildlife photographers lined up with expensive equipment, hoping to capture the famous bird. Children pressed their faces against car windows, excited to meet the celebrity magpie they'd seen online. The magpie seemed to understand its newfound fame, performing even more confidently for the growing crowds. What started as a simple rescue had become a phenomenon that would change everything the family thought they knew about fame. What we witnessed defied everything we thought we knew about wild animals and human bonds. But science reveals the extraordinary truth behind these impossible relationships. Magpies possess cognitive abilities that rival those of great apes and dolphins. They're one of only 5 animal species that can recognize themselves in mirrors. Their brains contain neural pathways for complex emotional processing and memory formation. Studies show magpies can remember individual human faces for years. They form complex social hierarchies and demonstrate grief when separated from bonded companions. But why would a wild bird choose human companionship over natural freedom? Research reveals that early imprinting during critical development periods creates unbreakable neural pathways. The stress hormone cortisol actually decreases in rescued birds when near their human companions. These animals aren't rejecting their wild nature. They're expanding their definition of family. Evolutionary biologists call this adaptive flexibility, the ultimate survival strategy. When basic needs are met with love and security, some animals choose connection over convention. After years of failed release attempts, the Blooms faced an undeniable truth. Penguin had made his choice, and now they had to make theirs. Sam looked at his wife, then at the bird who refused to leave. The decision was unanimous. But keeping a wild magpie isn't just an emotional decision, it's a legal minefield. In most places, keeping wild birds violates federal wildlife protection laws. The Blooms had to navigate a complex web of wildlife agencies and special permits. Months of bureaucracy followed. Forms, inspections, and endless justifications. But Penguin's story had touched hearts, even in government offices. Finally, after 18 months, the permits were approved. Penguin could legally stay. The impact on the Bloom family was profound and lasting. Children grew up understanding that love transcends species boundaries. Neighbors discovered that extraordinary bonds can emerge from the most unexpected places. Today, 7 years later, Penguin still greets Sam every morning at 6:30 sharp. Some bonds are too powerful for nature's rules. Some families choose each other. If this opened your eyes, smash that like button and subscribe for more.